ॐ यश्छन्दसां वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया स्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तम कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवम् ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Now let us chant the Mangalacharana. It is there on the screen. Yo brahmandamidam karoti sukaram satyam shivam sundaram yasyanugraham eva sujanam sarve yatante sada
bhaktim yasya
yasya vina kadapi purusho
muktim
navai vindate bhuktim navai vindate
paramam
tasmai
namaha
vedante chayamahure
paramam
devaya tasmai namaha. Okay, thank you. I will just recapitulate what were discussed in the last webinar, because these are certain important fundamental points which you must remember, you must bear in mind, keep in mind, so that the future discussions, they will help. So it will take some 10 minutes, but it's worth doing that. This first we discussed about the style and structure of the Brahma Sutra. See, in any language, the literature is composed in the form of prose, poetry, drama, etc. Gadya, Padya, Nataka, and so on. Brahma Sutra does not fall in any of these categories. Brahma Sutra is composed in the form of sutras. What is a sutra? A sutra is defined as Alpaksharam Asandigdam Saravat Vishwatomukham Astobham Anavadyam Cha Sutram Sutravido Viduhu. So the definition says, a sutra by definition comprises few words and is yet free from doubt. So a sutra is cryptic, having one or two or a few words, and yet it is clear and doubt-free. The important point to be noted is, a sutra makes a definite, clear, and unambiguous statement. Therefore, it cannot be interpreted differently. This is a very important point. A sutra cannot be interpreted differently. Yet, some scholars have complained against the Brahma Sutras. For example, some say, in fact, the sutras are more cryptic than the Upanishads, and it is consequently much more difficult to get at their meaning than at those of the old treatises. The result is that even as regards the most essential points, there is ambiguity. But these complaints, according to me, are due to their own misunderstandings and their inability to decipher the sutras. Then the next point is the sutras are possibly like newspaper headlines. They are meaningful to those who are familiar with the happenings of that day. So I had given 3 examples. I'll quote only one example to make the point clear. So there was a heading some years back, government prepares for life after left. So you will not know anything. What is this life after left? So only when I refer that to the which position there, then you will understand. In 2008, the President George Bush came to India and he had an understanding and agreement with the government of India on some transfer of nuclear technology. But the communist members of the parliament, they were against that agreement. So they threatened the Manmohan Singh government that if you enter into this agreement, we will withdraw our support, because Congress were not having sufficient members of their own and they were running the government on the support of the communist members. So Congress had to make arrangement with the other members, talk to them and seek their support for making this agreement with America. So therefore, that headline was, the government prepares for life after left. That means even if the left members withdraw their support, government will be able to continue with their administration. So why I am telling here, similarly, the key words in the sutras hint at some topic debated in a scripture. So if one reads sutras without reading scriptures, sutras look ambiguous and enigmatic. I gave examples. For example, Anandamayobhyasat, this is one sutra. Dahara Uttarebhyaha, this is another sutra. This first one, Anandamayaha Abhyasat, you will not know what this sutra is telling. This word Anandamaya, Ananda, is repeated 100 times in the Taittiriya Upanishad, both in Brahmavalli as well as in Bhruguvalli. In Bhruguvalli, one mantra is like this. Anandam Brahmeti Vivyajanat Ananda Deva Imani Bhutani Jayante Anande Naiva Jatani Jivanti Anandam Prayant Abhishamsmishantiti Tadvijidnyasasva Tad Brahmeti Satapo Tapyata. Like that, there are so many statements. And in Brahmavalli also, there are so many statements. There, what they are discussing is Paramatman or Brahman is Anandamayaha. And that's why it says, the sutra declares Paramatman is Anandamayaha Abhyasat, because it has been repeatedly told in Taittiriya Upanishad. Similarly, Dahara Uttarebhyaha. This Dahara means a recess or a cleavage in the heart. So the sutra contends that Paramatman abides in the heart of everybody, in that recess. So this point is discussed in chapter 7 of Chandogya Upanishad, where this word Dahara is repeated so many times. There it says Daharaha, ata Dahare. That means Paramatman is available in or abiding in Dahare. On what basis? Uttarebhyaha. That means on the other sentences which come later. So that is the way how a sutra is understood. The Brahma Sutras are grouped into 4 adhyayas. Each adhyaya has 4 padas. Each pada is divided into several topics known as adhikaranas. An adhikarana may have one or more sutras. When there are more number of sutras in one adhikarana, the first sutra is known as Adhikarana Sutra. The remaining ones which support the first are called as Guna Sutras. Here Guna means minor. Guna and Gauna, they indicate minority. So these Guna Sutras are the minor sutras in that Adhikarana. Then the first Adhyaya is known as Samanvayadhyaya. The second one is known as Avirodhadhyaya. The third one is Sadhanadhyaya. And the fourth is Phaladhyaya. The first Adhyaya, that is Samanvayadhyaya, shows that all the words and phrases in Vedas describe the nature and attributes of Brahman, Paramatman. The second Adhyaya, that is Avirodhadhyaya, shows that the statements in the first Adhyaya cannot be contradicted. That's why it's called as Avirodhadhyaya. The third Adhyaya, that is Sadhanadhyaya, as the name suggests, shows the ways and means of realizing Brahman. And the fourth one describes how a soul, after realizing Brahman, attains to moksha. So now we came to the commentaries. I said a sutra cannot be and should not be interpreted in different ways. But it is the misfortune of Hindu religion that in the course of history, Brahma Sutras have been interpreted by different preceptors in different ways for many reasons. Thus, there are 29 commentaries on record, but only 12 are available. The first one is of Shankaracharya. S. Radhakrishnan has listed them chronologically. I will just read out, you just remember that. One is Shankara's Nirvishesha Advaita. Second is Bhaskara's Bheda Bheda. Third is Yadava Prakasha's Bheda Bheda. Fourth is Ramanuja's Vishishtadvaita. Fifth is Madhva's Dvaita. Sixth is Nimbarka's Dvaitadvaita. Then seventh is Srikanta's Shaiva Vishishtadvaita. Eighth is Sripati's Bheda Bhedatmaka Vishishtadvaita. Ninth is Vallabha's Shuddhadvaita. 10th is Shuka's Bhedavada. 11, Vijnana Bhikshu's Atma Brahmaikya Bhedavada. Then 12th and last one is Baladeva's Achintya Bheda. So all these Vedas are there. So in this list, there are 3 lines of thinking. At one end is Advaita, and the other end is Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita is in the middle, trying to strike a mean between the two. And all others are just a mixture or a shade on this side or that side. So then we saw the study of Brahma Sutras. In order to study the cardinal tenets of Hinduism, I decided to study this Brahma Sutra, referring to the commentaries of these 3 acharyas, namely Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya. The problem before me for research was this. When a sutra could yield a definite, clear and unambiguous statement, how these 3 worthy acharyas could interpret the sutras differently and advocate different and contradictory doctrines. This was the problem for me. I'll repeat again. The problem before me was when a sutra could yield a definite, clear, and unambiguous statement, how these three worthy acharyas could interpret the sutras differently and advocate different and contradictory doctrines. In Sanskrit, there are so many works in the form of sutras. Brahma Sutra is not the only work. For example, this Kapila's Sankhya Sutra is there. Sankhya Darshana is in the form of sutra only. Then Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is there. Gautama's Nyaya Sutra is there. Kanada's Vaisheshika Sutra is there. Jaimini's Purvamimamsa Sutra is there. Then there are so many Kalpa Sutras and Griya Sutras and Panini's Vyakarana Sutras are there. There are so many sutras. But there are no such conflicting interpretations in any of these Sutra Granthas except in the case of Brahma Sutras. This point is to be noted. See, there is a customary method of amplifying a sutra into a full sentence using the established techniques like anuvritti, avritti, adhikara, sheshapurana, adhyahara, yogyata, etc. This is a very standard method, traditionally used for many years. So, it's possible to interpret any sutra. So, each sutra is a syllogism or a reasoned sentence. So, Brahma Sutras are reasoned sentences. Bhagavad Gita describes in one place, Rushibhir Bahudha Gitam Chandobhir Vividhaih Pratak Brahma Sutra Padaishchaiva Hetumadbhir Vinishchitai. So Bhagavad Gita says the Brahma Sutra sentences are Hetumat sentences. That means reasoned sentences. So each sutra is a syllogism. For example, the mountain has fire because it has smoke. The first part of this sentence, that is, the mountain has fire, is called a pratijna, assertion. That is a declaration. Somebody is telling, hey, the mountain has fire. He is making a statement. But the second part is called hetu, or a reason. On what basis you are telling? Because it has smoke. So all things like this only. Every sutra has got a pratijna, assertion, and a hetu, or reason. Unfortunately, this method of expanding a sutra into a full sentence, showing the pratijna and hetu in each sutra, and then interpreting the import of the sutra, is not found in any of these three commentaries referred to. I am making a very responsible statement. I have seen all these three commentaries by the great acharyas, Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, and Madhvacharya, but they have not treated the sutras in this way. Not only that, the sub-commentaries on that, for example, the Shankara Bhashya has got a commentary by Vachaspati Mishra, a famous book known as Bhamati. Very beautiful language, but he has not explained the sutras in this way. On Madhvacharya Sutra Bhashya, there are so many commentaries. The famous one is Tattva Prakashika by the great Jayatirtha. And on this Tattva Prakashika only, there are at least about 11 glosses on that one by great people like Raghuttama Tirtha and Vadiraj Tirtha Raghavendra Tirtha, and so many Srinivasa Tirtha, Sri Pandurangi Srinivas, and Sakri Srinivas. There are three Srinivases. But nobody has treated the sutras in this way. Perhaps some may say that this is a very elementary and academic way of interpreting the sutras, but these acharyas have discussed it at a much higher level. Maybe I don't belong to that higher level, I belong to this elementary level, but I want to know the meaning of the sutras in this way, and nobody has told, and nobody answers me that a sutra cannot be interpreted in different ways, how these people are interpreting in different ways. That was my problem. So when I decided, now I had to face the music. So this is what was discussed in the last webinar. Any questions about this, especially by those who were absent last time?
No, Dr. Katti, thanks for summarizing. You didn't have to take the trouble, but appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you. So with this plan of study, I started reading the commentaries of the three acharyas on the Brahma Sutra, the sub-commentaries and glosses on them, their translations, etc., in Sanskrit, English, Marathi, and Kannada. Initially, I struggled a lot on account of the importance of this subject. A large volume of literature is available. In my study, I have referred to about 60 books. Considering the stupendous work involved, I restricted my study to the first two adhyayas only. Still, the task was frightening. I felt as though I was trying to lift an elephant or was trying to bite far more than I could chew. At one stage, I even thought of abandoning the study. But it's human nature that when a person feels cornered and helpless, he desperately seeks some divine help, however rational he may be. I was not an exception. So I went on a pilgrimage to Badrinath. At about 3 kilometers from Badrinath, on its northwest, there is a village called Mana on the bank of river Saraswati. This Saraswati is a small rivulet, about 15-20 miles or so. This is not that famous Saraswati which was bigger than Sindhu, which flew up to Sabarmati and joined this Arabian Sea, and now it is flowing underground, they say. Not that Saraswati. This Saraswati is a small river. This is the same sacred place referred to as Keshava Prayaga or Shamya Prasatirtha. It is the last Indian village on the segment of Indo-Tibetan border. On a small hill behind that village, there is a cave, and tradition believes that sitting in this cave some 2500 years ago, Badarayana Vyasa composed his works. So, having offered my obeisance to Lord Narayana, Badri Narayana, the popular deity of Badrinath, along with a friend of mine, I walked up to this cave and literally prostrated before the life-size idol of Badarayana Vyasa. In this cave, I prayed for his blessings so that I could understand the import of his sutras. My prayer was only one thing, that I should understand the import of his Brahma Sutras. So you may think that it is some superstition or something like that. But my condition or mental condition was like this. I will tell you another incident in my personal life which I have not told anybody and which I have not recorded anybody. It's in those days I was attending some yogasana classes along with a friend of mine. He was a private teacher. In his house only he was conducting. So normally we used to make some yogasanas for about an hour and come back. But once or twice a month he used to arrange for a program known as Yoga Nidra. So Yoga Nidra is during everyday's yogasana, the last asana done is Shavasana. It's a relaxing asana. In that Shavasana, the person, he just lies on his back and throws his limbs like a dead body. That means completely relaxed condition. And the only thing working is breathing. And that too slowly. And there some breathing exercises are there without exerting, so that the whole body is relaxed. The Yoga Nidra is similar to that one, but on that day we did no other asana except Shavasana. And it continued for about 45 minutes to 1 hour. And he used to put on a record in a low voice. And the person is giving some instructions and all, and making our conscious mind slowly and completely relaxed. So, as they say, the Yogasana people, they say, we have got a conscious mind and subconscious mind and all that. So, the teacher was telling that you will go to the level of your subconscious mind. And some of the people were just snoring, they used to sleep. And some, they will say half sleep. And some were alert, and then they were going to their subconscious mind or something like that. So, what that teacher told us, if you have some ambition or wish in your great wish in your life, and if you remember that wish during this stage of subconscious or the Yoga Nidra stage, then your willpower will increase and you will attain that one or that ambition or aim. That was his contention. Right or wrong, I used to wanted to try that one. So the ambition or aim, wish I used to express during that Yoga Nidra is this one only, that I should be able to understand the meaning of the sutras, the Brahma Sutras. To this extent, I was fired in those days. But others may say it is a blind belief, superstition, but it proved true afterwards. So I continued after this pilgrimage to Badrinath. I continued my study for about 3 years. Still, I could not put down a single word on paper. But one fine morning, while going through some book, possibly by the grace of Lord Vedavyasa himself, I stumbled upon a rare, marvelous work on Brahma Sutra by a 17th century pontiff, Raghavendra Tirtha. You may say it is just an accident that you are reading so many books and you came across some sentence. How do you say that it is Vedavyasa's grace only? See, when certain things happen accidentally, they have got a possibility, percentage possibility. So 1 in 100 cases, it may happen like that. But when a series of things happen accidentally, all in my favor, the probability goes to so minor, so small, that you have to accept the grace of God or the presence of God. That is my contention. Because one or two things may happen accidentally, but so many things, unexpected things, will never happen. In this case, the book I am referring to is a book written and published by Mr. Haridas Bhatt of Purna Prajna Vidyapith. It is a comparative study of Brahma Sutras in only one adhyaya, first adhyaya only, and he has done it in Kannada. So I never knew that such a book existed. A friend of mine who was staying just in the neighborhood of my residence in Pune, his son was working in Bangalore and he used to go there very often. And one day he went to a shop there, that is your Vedanta book house, and he saw on the shelf on Brahma Sutra a book on Kannada. He was not studying sutras. He knew that I am studying. He just thought of purchasing that book. He purchased and he brought that book and he presented to me. And then I came across this sentence. So all these things won't happen accidentally. So I believe it is the grace of Vedavyasa. In this book, the author has dealt with the sutras in the academic style, using the customary techniques, tantras, of deciphering a sutra, which I listed just now. He has appropriately named the work as Tantra Deepika. That is a work that throws light, Deepika, on the import of the sutras or interprets the sutras using the customary techniques, that is tantras, for deciphering a sutra. That is the only book available in this way. With the help of this work, I made an objective study of the Brahma Sutra. I analyzed each sutra and found its import based on the syntax and semantics of the words used therein. Then I tallied the import of the interpretations of that sutra by the three acharyas and ascertained which one agreed with it convincingly and which one did not. See, in this exercise, I was very careful because one thing, all these three great acharyas, great personalities, and in front of them, I am a worthless speck. So I have taken care not to say anywhere that this interpretation is either correct or this interpretation is wrong. Because I have got no authority to say that somebody's interpretation is correct. If I have to declare that it is correct, I must be a greater knowledgeable person than that person. And another thing, if I have to say that it is wrong, that I must know more than that person. So I have never said anywhere that this is right or this is wrong. What all I have said is, I am convinced of this interpretation and I am not convinced of the other interpretation. So if I am not convinced, it may be my fault or my lacuna. So I also reasoned out as to why some interpretations were found convincing and why others were considered as not convincing. When I completed my analysis of the sutras in the first chapter, that is first pada of the first adhyaya, I was not yet sure as to whether I was on the right track, whether I was doing the correct thing. So I went to Mumbai and met Mahamahopadhyaya Dr. B.N.K. Sharma, a renowned scholar in the subject of my study. He was 95. Even at that age, he went through each and every word of my write-up. See, that day his son, he is also a retired principal of a college, and his father, this B.N.K. Sharma, these two people were there. So his son told me he cannot hear properly with both his ears. So you better sit by his side on his right so that he can hear from with his right ear. And he himself sat in front of us. So when he was going through, he spontaneously patted me on the back and candidly expressed his happiness about my objective approach to the subject. You remember that this Dr. B.N.K. Sharma has written on this comparative study of by these three acharyas three voluminous books. In all about 1800 pages he has written. And he was telling that your this sentence is very good and your this explanation I am very glad and all. And he was patting it literally and he was shaking hands with me. That raised my spirits and I felt confident of completing the proposed study. See, that day, it was perhaps the happiest day in my life. From Bombay, when I came to Pune by a bus, I was not simply traveling by bus. I was flying actually because I was in such high spirits, that I have done something which I should be proud of that one. So, it took me further 4 years to complete the study of the two adhyayas of Brahma Sutra. I prepared this study into a thesis. When I submitted it to the University of Pune in 2008 for a PhD degree, I was delighted and exclaimed to myself, yes, I have done it. See, the condition, my condition was like this, You must have seen in some cricket matches, a fast bowler, he toils, he perspires, he goes on bowling and all. He doesn't get any wicket and he is hit for boundaries and sixers and all that. He is worried and still continues with his bowling. At sometimes, if the batsman just jumps out and misses the ball and he is clean bowled, see the amount of happiness, the amount of joy that bowler gets, he jumps and he screams and he pumps in the air and does all sorts of things. Different people have got different styles of expressing. So I felt that day something like that. See, I did it. So I was delighted. This dissertation was accepted and a PhD degree was awarded to me by the university in 2009. The thesis was later published as a book in 2013 under the title Brahman, the Supreme Being in Brahma Sutras. See, before this PhD, that I have to face one one interview, and there are about 20-30 people. Some one or two external examiners will be there. The head of the department will be there. and some half a dozen professors will be there, and others PhD students will be there, and my own guide also will be there. So they will ask 101 questions. See, in this, all the professors and even the examiners, they were all followers of Shankaracharya. So they could not tolerate me that I have not agreed with the Shankaracharya's Bhashya. So they were charging me, they were attacking me that you have done partiality. Your analysis is not impartial. I said, no, I have said whatever is right, I have said right. So I have accepted. It was a difficult thing, they were not allowing me to speak even, like a parliament. The only person on my side was my guide, and she had to be because she had signed. And they were objecting to even, why do you want to take anuvritti, avritti, etc.? Not necessary. Then my guide said, no, what he has done is correct. And this is the way sutra is to be understood. So, of course, my guide had told me, whatever they ask, you don't bother, you don't quarrel, you only just answer them. They cannot prevent a degree for you because the degree is already decided before this Viva was. And what they want to find out in this Viva is whether you are the person who has written this or whether you have got it written by somebody else by paying some money, because some things go on like that. They want to only check up that you are the same person and you have done this work. That's all. And now you have very well proved that whether you have done it partially or impartially or whatever it may be, that you have done it. So you don't worry. So like that, I had a tough task, a tough time to face that one. And during this publication also, my first book was published in Bangalore in that Purna Prajna Vidyapith at the hands of the great Vishwesh Tirtha of Pejawar Mutt. And during the publication, he complimented me. That he said, so far we had only 2 people who wrote in English on Madhva philosophy. One Mr. Dr. B.N.K. Sharma and another is Professor K.T. Pandrangi. And this is the 3rd person to write in English on Madhva philosophy. And he was speaking in Kannada. So he described ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಸೂತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಅರ್ಥವನ್ನು ಕಟ್ಟಿಯವರು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಕಟ್ಟಿ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Like that he gave a compliment. So I was very happy that day. Even after submitting my dissertation to the university, I continued my study of the remaining 2 adhyayas, that is adhyayas 3 and 4. Along with my study, I used to teach the Brahma Sutras regularly to a group of 8 to 10 highly educated senior citizens, just as we are discussing. So we were discussing each and every sutras. This study was also published by me in 2015 in the form of a book with the title Meditation in Brahma Sutras. In all, it took me about 15 years to study this Brahma Sutra of Badarayana Vyasa. In these books, I have quoted extensively the statements of former renowned pontiffs like Jayatirtha, Vyasatirtha, and Raghavendra Tirtha, as well as modern scholars like V.S. Ghate, S. Radhakrishnan, and B.N.K. Sharma. The intention in publishing these 2 books was that my impartial and objective study of this work for about 15 years should reach the interested readers among the modern intelligentsia, who consider themselves as rational and not blind believers in any doctrine. However, these books could be useful only to those who were conversant with Sanskrit and Hindu scriptures like the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, etc. But for common readers, these books are found to be a hard nut to crack. Therefore, I undertook to write this book in order to bring out the central ideas submerged in these two voluminous earlier books. The purpose of writing this book is to place before the general readers in a nutshell, in the following chapters 6 to 12, my understanding of the cardinal tenets of Hinduism in its pristine purity, of course within my limitations. These tenets are based on the collective intelligence of Vedic seers, and hence they are free from human errors. Further, they are confirmed by authoritative pronouncements by a knowledgeable and trustworthy person like Vedavyasa. Therefore, they do not need any further proofs based on other testimonies like the Upanishads. Please note this statement, why I am making this statement. See, these tenets are based on the collective intelligence of Vedic seers, and hence they are free from human error. Further, they are confirmed and by authoritative pronouncements by a knowledgeable and trustworthy person like Vedavyasa. Therefore, they do not need any further proofs based on other testimonies like the Upanishads. Because you will come to know in the course of further reading that some people have tried to reject the sutras or refute the sutras because they are not in agreement with some Upanishadic statements. So I am claiming that you cannot judge the validity of sutras on the basis of Upanishads. Oh, no doubt, Upanishads are Vedic statements and they have to be taken correct and all that. But the interpretation of that Upanishad is left to Vedavyasa. Would agree with Vedavyasa's interpretation of the Upanishad. He has definitely. So some people have tried to refute the sutra itself on the strength of Upanishads. Particularly like our Bhamatikar, this Vachaspati Mishra. He says, Veda Sutrayor Virodhe Gunet Anyaya Kalpana iti Sutrani Anyatha Netavyani. He makes a statement like this. What he says is, Veda Sutrayor Virodhe. If there is a contradiction between the sutra and the Vedic statement, that is Upanishadic statement, then Gunetvanyaya Kalpana. You should do injustice to the minor thing. When the mother and the child, both are facing the danger, in order to save the mother, the child can be sacrificed. This is Gunetvanyaya Kalpana. The minor one can be sacrificed. This is a general understanding or axiom. So applying that one, he says, when there is a controversy between a sutra and Upanishad, Upanishad is the greater thing and sutra is the minor thing. So you throw away the sutras. This is the argument there. Veda Sutrayor Virodhe गुणे त्वन्यायकल्पना इति सूत्राणि अन्यथा नेतव्यानि. Wah! Therefore, I have made this statement that they do not need any further proof based on other testimonies like the Upanishads. Thus, these tenets of Hinduism are credible and valid, and they are the time-tested eternal truths. These tenets form the wisdom of ancient Hindu saints and sages, bequeathed to humanity so that people may get over their animal instincts and lead a happy, progressive, and fruitful life. So, for that, I have written this book. So, we'll stop here today because the next chapter is very important.